Hospitals are meant to be sanctuaries. They are places where people come to heal, to recover, to survive. They are staffed by men and women who walk into chaos every day, armed with nothing more than training, compassion, and the belief that their presence can make a difference. But on Christmas Day, inside a Minnesota hospital emergency department, that belief would be shattered. No gunshots echoed through the halls. No alarms warned of an imminent threat. No masked intruder stormed through the doors. Instead, the danger was already inside. A patient, someone who had arrived seeking help, would allegedly turn violent, attacking a hospital security guard in a brutal confrontation that would end in death. By the time police arrived, a man who had reported for duty expecting a normal holiday shift would be gone. This is the story of the Minnesota Hospital Homicide, a case that raises disturbing questions about hospital security, mental health crises, and whether the system failed not just one man, but everyone involved. Christmas Day is rarely quiet in an emergency department. While much of the world gathers around tables and trees, hospitals remain fully operational, responding to accidents, medical emergencies, overdoses, and psychiatric crises. Staff on duty that morning described the atmosphere as tense but routine. Ambulances came and went. Patients waited behind thin curtains. Security officers patrolled the halls, keeping the peace, de-escalating conflicts, and ensuring staff safety. Among them was a hospital security guard, a professional trained to deal with volatile situations, often acting as the final line of defense between medical staff and patients in crisis. According to investigators, one patient stood out. A man who had been brought in earlier, described in court records as agitated, unstable, and potentially attempting to leave against medical advice. Hospital staff reportedly believed the patient required continued care or observation. But the patient wanted out, and when he tried to leave, hospital security intervened. What happened next would unfold in a matter of minutes, but its consequences would last forever. According to charging documents, the suspect was not a stranger to crisis. He had reportedly been placed on a medical or psychiatric hold, meaning hospital staff believed he posed a risk to himself or possibly to others. Holds like these are not uncommon in emergency departments. They are designed to protect patients during moments when judgment is impaired, due to mental illness, intoxication, or medical conditions. But they can also be volatile. Being told you cannot leave can trigger fear, anger, and panic, especially in someone already struggling. Investigators say the suspect became increasingly agitated. He argued with staff. He demanded to leave. And when verbal de-escalation failed, security stepped in. What hospital administrators did not know at that moment was that the situation was about to spiral into something far more dangerous than anyone anticipated. Surveillance cameras captured much of what happened next. According to prosecutors, the patient attempted to physically force his way out of the emergency department. A security guard confronted him. At first, the interaction appeared routine, another attempt to stop a patient from leaving unsafely. But suddenly, the situation turned violent. Investigators allege the patient attacked the guard, throwing punches, grappling, and slamming him to the ground. Witnesses described chaos. Medical staff backed away. Patients screamed. Alarms were triggered. According to the criminal complaint, the suspect continued the assault even as the guard lay on the floor. The attack was described as sustained and brutal. By the time other staff intervened and police were called, the damage had already been done. The security guard was unconscious. First responders attempted life-saving measures, but it was too late. On Christmas Day, in a place meant to save lives, one was lost. The irony was devastating. The victim was pronounced dead in the same hospital where he worked. Doctors and nurses, his colleagues, were the ones who attempted resuscitation. For many staff members, the trauma was immediate and overwhelming. This wasn't a patient dying of illness. This wasn't an accident. This was a coworker killed while doing his job. Hospital administrators shut down parts of the emergency department as police secured the scene. Yellow tape stretched across hallways usually filled with gurneys. Families waiting for care were escorted out, and word of the incident began to spread, first locally, then nationally. Police took the suspect into custody at the hospital. According to authorities, he showed signs of injury consistent with a physical struggle. He was transported to jail under guard. Hours later, prosecutors announced charges. The suspect was accused of murder, with enhancements related to the victim being a security officer performing his duties. At his first court appearance, the suspect appeared subdued. The courtroom was silent as the charges were read aloud. For the victim's family, watching from a distance, there were no words that could soften the reality. A loved one had gone to work on Christmas and never came home. While much attention focused on the suspect, those who knew the victim wanted the public to remember the man behind the uniform. Colleagues described him as calm under pressure, someone who took his role seriously, someone who believed in protecting others, even when it put him in harm's way. Hospital security officers often occupy a strange space. They are not police. They are not medical staff. Yet they are expected to manage violent situations with limited tools, often unarmed, relying on physical presence and de-escalation techniques. The victim had reportedly worked holidays before. He understood the risks, but no one expects to die while protecting a hospital hallway. Prosecutors say surveillance video plays a key role in the case. The footage allegedly shows the suspect attempting to leave, the guard intervening, the physical assault, the guard collapsing. Investigators also gathered witness statements from hospital staff and patients, medical records, incident reports, and internal hospital communications were subpoenaed. Every second of footage, every word of testimony, would now be scrutinized in court, because this case wasn't just about guilt. It was about responsibility. As news spread, a painful question emerged. Could this death have been prevented? Hospital safety experts weighed in. Some pointed to chronic understaffing. Others questioned whether security officers should handle violent patients alone. Mental health advocates raised concerns about how psychiatric patients are managed in emergency rooms. And hospital workers across the country began asking the same question. Could this happen here? Unlike police officers, hospital security guards often lack protective equipment, weapons, backup response teams. Yet they face a violent patients, a drug-induced psychosis, a mental health crisis, desperate individuals trying to flee. Studies show violence against healthcare workers has increased dramatically in recent years. Emergency departments are especially dangerous. And this case became a tragic symbol of that reality. As the case moves forward, prosecutors will attempt to prove intent, or at minimum, reckless disregard for life. Defense attorneys may argue a mental illness, lack of intent, a medical crisis, reduced culpability. The courtroom will become a battleground, not just over facts, but over how society treats people in crisis. And at the center of it all, a man who lost his life doing his job. The reaction was swift. Healthcare workers across the country expressed outrage and fear. Online forums filled with stories of assaults in hospitals that never made headlines. Unions demanded better protections. Security professionals called for reforms. And families of healthcare workers wondered if their loved ones were safe. This wasn't just one case. It was a warning. Behind every headline is a family. A family who received a phone call on Christmas. A family whose holiday became a permanent scar. Funeral services were held in private. Colleagues attended in uniform. And as the victim was laid to rest, one truth remained. No job should cost you your life. This case is still unfolding. The courts will decide guilt. Psychiatrists will debate responsibility. Hospitals will review policies. But no verdict can undo what happened. A man went to work on Christmas Day to protect others and paid the ultimate price. The Minnesota Hospital Homicide forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about mental health, about workplace safety, about how fragile order can be, even in places meant to heal. And until those questions are answered, the halls of emergency rooms across America remain quieter than they should be. Because everyone is listening, waiting, wondering who might be next. End credits call to action. If you found this report informative, Consider subscribing for more in-depth true crime investigations. Leave your thoughts below. Should hospitals change how they handle violent patients? And as always, remember the victims.